Section Summer League Podcast. What's going on, sports fans? Welcome to episode 5 of the Student Section Summer League Podcast. I'm your host, Dom Taylor, along with my co-hosts, Cooper Husky and Dylan Morgan. Guys, how are we doing today?
Doing great. Ready to talk about some sports, man.
Feeling fantastic.
Yep, absolutely. Never a bad day to talk about sports, as we say every single week. Very excited to be here. Very thankful to have sports back. But there are some dark times that are still kind of looming over the sports world. You know, we kind of thought we were out of the clear with COVID-19, but it is still lingering. And it looks like it's going to be doing that for a while. College football, guys. There is still some turmoil going on in college football. That's one of the things that we're going to be talking about today. And then we're going to get into the NBA. The NBA has finalized their return schedule, so we're going to look at some of the matchups and some of the winners and losers of the return schedule and just what, some of those results might look like. And then finally, we are on the round of 4 of our CFB all-time team debate. It's going to be 2019 LSU and the 2005 Texas Longhorns, as well as the 2009 Alabama Crimson Tide and the 2008 Florida Gators that have made it to the round of 4. And we have a little bit of a different format that we're going to be giving you today in terms of how we're going to compare some of those teams. So let us jump right into it. First off, guys, college football. Let me give you a little context. So on Thursday, the United States of America set a single-day record for coronavirus infections with 39,000 in one day. I think that was to be expected. I think once you started to reopen things, you started to let people kind of go out, mix and mingle a little bit, the infections were going to rise. I don't know if that's much of a surprise. However, it is concerning knowing that sports, and especially our favorite sport, college football, that's going to be coming up pretty soon. That's going to have big implications. So let's talk about what's going on right now. There are spikes at Clemson. There are spikes at LSU. Kansas State used to have 0 cases. Now they have 14 just on their football program alone, and they had to shut down practices for a few weeks. It's not looking good. I mean, Clemson had 37 confirmed cases. Most have been asymptomatic and a lot have recovered. That's a good sign. That means that it's not as deadly to the athletes. However, you don't like students to be getting the disease at all. They could spread it to other students. They could be, spreading it to their families. Of course, we're concerned about that. And then, of course, LSU had 30 players quarantined. Some of them didn't even have the virus. Some of them were just in contact with some of those players. And so LSU decided to quarantine them as precautionary measures. Now, some schools, even like Morehouse. Now, Morehouse is not a Division I. They're not a very, prestigious sports school, I would say. However, they have shut down all of their fall sports for this year. So, they have decided to just cut it. Now, I don't know if schools like LSU and Clemson could do that and not sustain, very big consequences financially. But if these cases start to arise, I mean, some could argue that this is actually better to get them now. I would argue that getting them at all is not a good thing. But if that's how you look at it, kind of this like Machiavellian, that the end just defines the means kind of thing, then I guess that's logical. Let me throw a couple quotes towards you guys right now. There was a Yahoo Sports article where a couple Power 5 coaches were interviewed. Here's what they had to say about the current situation. They said, "I have no idea how we play." This Power 5 coach told the Yahoo Sports writer, the names were not disclosed to keep their confidentiality, but they said, "I don't know how we play. We have 10 guys who can work out at a time, no one within 10 feet of each other, and we have to clean the entire weight room after. 2 weeks later, we can line up and do walkthroughs 11 on 11. If they get to that." There was another Power 5 coach that said, if it's contact tracing and somebody, a coach loses a guy for 14 days, I don't know how we're going to have a football season is basically what he said. It's true. If you lose a guy for 14 days, I mean, that's a lot of time for college football. However, there's some people who are a little more optimistic. UA athletic director Greg Byrne was confident. He said today that there will be college football. Guys, when you hear those quotes and you hear the the lack of confidence in having a football season or a at least modified football season. How does that change your outlook? What are you thinking? What's going to happen? What are your predictions for the next few months? How do you think this college football season would shape up?
I think that because we're starting to hear some internal problems now, it's not a whole lot of outsiders looking in on the problem. It's within the organizations, within the universities, within the programs. We're starting to hear doubts and we're starting to hear lots of worries from them. So I feel like the more we hear stuff from within these organizations, the worse the chances are looking for a college football season or college sports in general for the fall and maybe on into the winter and the springtime.
Well, it's depressing to hear this talk, doubts about having a college football season. But I have to say, we will find a way. There is no way our country can let football season go. It's a part of our culture. It's a part of our economy. Like if football goes, you're going to see a lot of stocks drop right then and there. So I have to agree. I have to agree with Greg Byrne. I think we will have a football season, modified or regular. It doesn't matter. There will be football played this fall, but it is a shame to see Morehouse College just straight up canceling it.
Yeah, I got to say, I'm scared to see more programs follow the way of Morehouse College. I think that if some things aren't done, if numbers don't start going down, if a vaccine doesn't get here soon, which Dr. Fauci, he did say that wishful thinking. Or it wasn't wishful thinking. He was saying with concerned optimism. He was saying that there could be a vaccine ready by late 2020. The unfortunate part about that is at that time it becomes cold and flu season, and viruses and germs, they travel very fast and people get infected very fast around that time. There were other coaches that were saying that it's a big surprise to them that we haven't already started talking about moving the season to the spring, which would be very different. I personally, of course, would rather have a college football season in the spring than none at all. I don't think the spring really affects whether or not, we still enjoy it. There's this mystique when it comes to playing football in the fall. That's always been the season that we play it, right? But I'd much rather have the season than anything else. And I'd also much rather keep the athletes safe. But that is the update. With what's going on with COVID-19 in the college football world. It's not looking good. It's looking like there's going to be a lot of changes come August and into September. That's around the time when we're going to really know what this season's going to look like, and if it's going to be condensed, if they're going to start cutting preseason games, if they're going to move it to a different season. Again, like we thought 4 months ago, everything is still so up in the air now that we've kind of reopened everything. Now, there is a league that has decided to reopen. They know what they're going to do. That's the NBA. They have their return schedule. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the winners and some of the losers of this return schedule. Now, let's get into this here. So, July 31st, that is when they are going to start the season. It's going to be pretty interesting. It's going to be televised. There are finally going to be sports, on TNT. They're going to be on ESPN. It's a little bit of a normalcy. That gets people excited for sure. And of course, there's 22 teams that are going to come back. They're going to be able to play into the playoff system for the NBA. I wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of these teams that I think kind of got the brunt of this new scheduling that the NBA put together, and then some that kind of got a little got away with something, if you so please to call it that. Now, first off, guys, I will give you my takes here. So I think one of the winners of this new NBA schedule that's been released is the Pelicans. All right, so let's talk about this here. The Pelicans, they kind of have an easy schedule now. It wasn't that way originally when they were ending the season. They got kind of a reshuffle, and they got the luck of the draw. So all of their remaining opponents combined 500 winning, under 500 winning percentage. That's a great stat there. They were hot before the season ended, or was postponed, I should say. But they're likely to make a good run before playoffs because of that momentum that they had. That's not a guarantee, but because they had that synergy that they had when they ended, there's a possibility that they could have it going forward, and against some teams that are probably a little inferior compared to their talent that they have. I'm sure Zion's going to be raring to play. He kind of had his rookie season cut short. I'm sure that's going to play a factor. I look for him to have some really big games here. Their toughest game of all of them is against the Clippers, and I think that that's a winnable game as well. The Clippers have had some consistency issues this last season, so I look for the Pelicans to go 7-1, maybe 6-2, and probably get that 8th seed when it comes time for playoffs. Now, my loser is the Toronto Raptors, and that's because they have a very mixed bag when it comes to seeding. They've got some higher seeds that they're going to face, but they also have some or I shouldn't say seeds. They have some teams that are higher in their records, but they also have some teams that are kind of lower that are looking to jump into that 8th seed, and they're going to be hungry. They're going to be, they got nothing to lose, right? It's going to be all or nothing to get that 8th seed, and I could see the Toronto Raptors dropping several games, probably not doing as well as people thought they were going to do, maybe ending up in a lower seed than they thought, or dangerously close to like a 6th or 7th seed around there. So that's my winner and my loser. Let's go on to somebody else. Dylan, what you got?
All right, man. Yeah, I agree with you for the winner. I have another pick, but yeah, the Pelicans, they have a really good run in the West right now, really good squad. Plus, with Zion coming off of that injury, he got even more time to rest, which will be really big for them moving on as well. But my personal winner is going to be the Boston Celtics, man. The super talented squad you're talking about, led by who I think is going to be a future MVP, Jason Tatum. Got a really good squad, Kemba Walker, Marcus Smart, and all those guys. They only really have 2 decently hard games, but they are very winnable games against the Raptors and the Bucks, who sit atop in the East right now. The Celtics are trailing those 2 teams, and the 76ers, I believe. And then it's nothing but easy games. You're talking games against the Trailblazers, who are the bottom in the West, the Nets, who are the bottom in the East, the Grizzlies, bottom of the West. So the Celtics could make a really good run and maybe jump 1 or 2 spots in the East. That way they get an easier matchup going into these playoffs. And then my loser is going to be the Memphis Grizzlies, man, from the West. It's a young squad. John Morant has done a ton of work for them this year, put them in a great position. I think if it wasn't for the COVID and everything that happened, the Grizzlies would have got into that 8th place spot and they would have kept going in the playoffs. But now that, like I said, the Pelicans are going to make a good run. They're going to have to take on some tough teams to play the Bucks, the Celtics, and the Raptors, who are all top seeds in the East. And then they're going to have to take on the Thunder and the Jazz, who are right in the middle of the pack for the West. And then they're going to have to take on the really good Pelicans and even a sneaky good Trailblazer team, who are all hot on their tail for that 8th spot in the West.
All right, so my winner is going to be Milwaukee, the Bucks. They're first place in the East right now. They've got Giannis, who's just a freak right now, the Greek freak as his nickname. And so I think the Bucks will be fine. They'll cruise through these 8 games. And if they drop a couple, it doesn't really matter. They have 6.5 game lead on the Raptors, who are in second place. So the Bucks are not dropping any games or dropping at least any spots here or there. My loser, however, are going to be the Washington Wizards. Now, they were the last Eastern team invited to Orlando, so games to pass Orlando. And I just don't think that's going to happen because 2 of those games are against y'all's winners. They're going to be against the Celtics and the Pelicans, and then they're playing the Pacers and the 76ers, who are all ahead of them and looking to, establish good position. So I just don't see a Wizards team coming out here and doing enough to pass the Magic and make it into the NBA playoffs.
All right, guys, I like it. I'm excited that we have teams to even predict where they're going in a seeding at all. I don't care if you strip all these guys of all their star players and bring up their G League guys and have them, fight it out on the court for who gets a roster spot next year. I think that it's great to finally have an organized sport back, and we say that every single week. But here it finally is. So July 30th through August 2nd, that's going to be week 22, or I guess you could call it week 1. of this new NBA season, the second half, if you will. And 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. That's going to be the Utah Jazz and the New Orleans Pelicans. The wide world of sports in Orlando, Florida. That's where it's going down. That's where they built that bubble. And then, of course, that same day, 9 p.m. Eastern, it's going to be the LA Clippers and the Los Angeles Lakers. So they're going to start off this new season with a bang. That's all we got for the NBA. Now we're going to get into our final, and I'm going to say most anticipated because I've been most anticipating it. So me personally, I'm most anticipating this, but the NCAA football all-time best team debate, round 4. Guys, we're getting close. The round of 4 is here. We have 4 teams remaining, and here's the interesting thing that we're going to do today. Instead of giving you more talking points as to why this team is the best, we are going to switch it up. We are going to each give a talking point as to why the other's team is the worst, or not the worst team, but we're going to talk about each of their worst moments from that season. And so that's going to give you a well-rounded view of here's the best accomplishments from this team, as you've heard the last couple of weeks, but also here are the dark spots. Here's what happened during the season that we're not proud of. And then, of course, you're going to take that into consideration this coming week when we do another Twitter poll and we decide our final round, the NCAA all-time best team finals. So let's jump into it here. We've got the first team. Coop, why don't you go ahead and Dylan, why don't you go ahead and take LSU? What was their worst moment of the season? A team that I pitched, that I personally think is probably going to win this tournament, but it's up to the fans. What was the worst moment that LSU suffered this last year?
First off, I would like to point out that 3 of my 4 teams have made it to the top 4 as well. Just wanted to put that out there. But
congratulations.
Yes, Dom, thank you. Yes, Dom, to go to your point about the 2019 LSU team. Yeah, their biggest blemish on that magical, historic season has got to be the 38 points they gave up to an absolutely horrid Vanderbilt team. It's obviously they were not known for their defense in that season, but even giving up 38 to Vandy, inexcusable, some would say.
It's fair. It's fair. Every dog has its day. It happens. Okay. So keep that in mind, fans. So, yes, LSU did give up 38 points to a terrible Vanderbilt team. I believe Vanderbilt did go like 3-9 or 4-8 last year. That was the classic example of a team just playing to the level of its opponent. Even though they did put up like 60 points on Vanderbilt, it's beside the point. They did let up 38. We will jump into our next team. That's the Texas Longhorns, 2005 Texas Longhorns. Coop, what was their blemish? What did they do wrong?
2005 Texas Longhorns. Some would consider the best team. I, however, would put them on the list of mediocre champions, and here's why. Texas gave up 29 points to a 5-6 Texas A&M team that year. Texas A&M did not get ranked. This was before all the Jimbo days and the glitz and glamour of College Station. They gave up 29 and only won by 11 points. It was their lowest deficit. It was their lowest margin of victory all year, 11 points, and it was 29-34 in the third quarter. It looked like the game could go either way, and Texas' miracle undefeated season could have ended right there. That's one reason. My second reason is that championship game against USC had many points in the game where it seemed like Texas got a break. No replay to see if his knee was down. A fumble that seemed to go their way where Reggie Bush would never fumble, throughout the season. So I'd say Texas really did get lucky in that Rose Bowl, and so that's why you should never, ever vote for the 2005 Texas Longhorns in this poll.
That's a great case. That's a great case. I'm sure that hurts Dylan to hear, but
it's okay.
It's true. It happened. I will do you the liberty of picking apart the other 2 options that we have.
Yes.
The 2008 Florida Gators, Coop. This one's going to hurt you. And, of course, Alabama 2009 Rocky Block. That one, it's going to hurt me, but it's fair. And I will be fair when I'm talking about it. So let's get into Florida real quick.
And I will respect this one too. You know, I dished it out, and now it's time to take it.
It's true. That's how it works. All right,
How it works
2008
here.
Florida. Okay, lost to Ole Miss, 31-30. All right, they are the only team of this list that's not undefeated. All right, they did lose this game. Okay, they lost this game. Yeah, I get it. The promise happened. It came out of this. All right, that's awesome. Okay, it's one thing to play down to the level of your opponent, but it's another thing to lose. It's another thing to lose all sight and to do it at home. Nonetheless, you have a crowd that is expecting incredible things. They're expecting, the Heisman winner to be their savior. They're expecting this and that. And he goes into his home stadium and he can't control his team enough to beat Ole Miss in the swamp. And they lose by a point. All right?
Oh, man.
I get it. They're still an incredible team. They still won the national championship. But we're talking about 3 other teams that got it done when it counted, that went undefeated, okay, that had these incredible seasons. And all those teams, yeah, they had a Heisman winner on them too, all right? So you're not special, okay? Florida, you might have had a really cool speech after this game. You might have had a Heisman winner, but you're not cool. You're hanging with the big dogs now, all right? The promise is just words. There's still one blemish. There's still 1 point that you lacked to be perfect. These other teams, they still have the perfect record. All right, I'm done with Florida. We're going to go on to 2009 Alabama. Now it's time to, put that karma that I just put on Florida. We're going to bring it right back, okay? What are we doing? Needing a blocked field goal to beat Tennessee, who went 6-6 that year and was coached by Lane Kiffin, at home in Bryant-Denny.
Beautiful.
What are we doing? I get it. We played a ton of crazy teams that year. We played Auburn. We played Florida. We played Texas. We played Virginia Tech to begin the season back when they were good. It's like, we did all these things. We beat all these teams. We have this incredible running game. We've got Mark Ingram. And then we get stonewalled against Tennessee, a garbage Tennessee team, and we need 2 blocked field goals, mind you, by Mount Cody to win this game 12-10 at home. How Tennessee stifles our offense. I get Greg McElroy is not the best football, player. He's not the best quarterback that we've had at Alabama, but even still, it's Tennessee, guys. Lane Kiffin's not a defensive coach. I mean, that's a pretty bad blemish too. When we're keeping that in mind, that this happened against Tennessee at home, and it was a 12-10 game. That was by far the worst game. That was almost our blemish, or our really bad blemish. That would have kept us from being anywhere near in this discussion. We probably wouldn't even be talking about Alabama, the 2009 Alabama team, if we had lost that game, if that field goal was good. So yeah, guys, those are the 4 worst moments for all of these teams right here.
Wait, would you like to hear the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Volunteers that season?
God.
I'd love to.
Let me hear it.
Jonathan Crompton. We almost lost to Jonathan Crompton at home in Bryant-Denny Stadium.
Keyword almost, right? Keyword almost.
Oh, my goodness.
Any rebuttals to any of this? Is anything we said not true? By any of you?
No.
Everything you said is true. I do have one problem, though. The promise is more than just words. It is a motto, a rally cry, and just a moral victory for everyone north of Gainesville.
So it's a moral victory.
It's a moral victory.
There are no moral victories in football.
I know.
There's no moral victories in football, Coop. You've said that yourself before.
I have, but I didn't believe it then. I believe it now.
All right. Okay.
All right.
Well, there we go, guys. You've got 38 points to Vanderbilt. You've got Texas giving up 29 to a 5-6 Texas A&M team. You've got Florida losing to Ole Miss at home. And then you've got Alabama's Rocky Block, which somehow is I get it's a famous play for us, but that game should be far out of our minds. A 12-10 win against Tennessee at home. Keep that in mind when you're making your votes this week, all right? You've got all the good things, but here are some of the bad. and we're going to cut it down to 2 teams come this week. Look out for that Twitter poll. But that is all that we have for this episode of the Student Section Summer League podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you again next week. Thank you again.